Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our live webinar, Level Up Your Team's Performance. So this webinar is being organized by Together in association with Enabling Ventures. So this webinar is going to try and give insights on how to boost your team's performance and how one can evolve to be a better leader. So we have with us Mr. Gopalkrishnan Subramanian. Hello, Gopal. And so Gopal is an industry expert. He's a psychologist, a counselor, and a corporate coach. He has worked with numerous organizations across various age groups and hierarchical structures. He's helped organizations adopt and build employee-driven engagement culture. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Gopal. And Gopal, if you can just please take over.
All right, thank you, Gerald. I'm going to ask all of you to do me a favor. I know I can't see you, but whoever is comfortable, you can switch on your videos. And as long as you're not driving, I want you to put your hands up in the air and then wave it like crazy. Yeah. I can see only Gerald, and I guess he's the only brave guy who's ready to put up, and I can see Julia trying to set up her systems, but fantastic. Once again, a very good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right. Oh, that's much better. And one more last try where this time it's much more energetic. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. Thanks, Gerald. Thanks Together team for having me here and giving me this opportunity to be with you guys. Wonderful to be here. So I'm going to spend maybe an hour and a half to kind of share my experiences about this topic of team engagement and performance. And if there are any questions, then we can take it up. Let's see. Can I share my screen, Gerald?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
All right. A quick about myself. I'm a psychologist, coach, organizational consultant, commonly called as a mindset coach, because I work with individuals as corporates to see how I help in their thoughts, feelings, and kind of bring clarity and structure to the way they want to go about their changes. I come with about 26 plus years of industry experience. My first innings has been more as a software engineer. So I did my computer science engineering, and I was then in working as an engineering head, quality project management head, quality head, and the learning and development head. Besides my passion in terms of science, the whole certifications and the subject. I'm pursuing my passion of enabling people who don't like this, they can lead a cheerful life, and I do counseling coach their like services, volunteering with a couple of focused on mental health, individuals as well as children suffering intellectual disabilities. Past 5 years, being own, I kind of focused more on. I worked with about 5,000 people. All right, so this is a quick overview of myself, a coach, counselor, focusing on working with individuals to get them gain clarity in terms of their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Right, and I do this through various means. All right, can you all see the screen now?
Yes.
All right. So let's start with a quick icebreaker. I have a small story, just about 3-4 lines. Let's go through the story, and based on this, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we can look at that, right? Okay, so a businessman had just turned off the lights in a store when a man appeared and demanded money. The owner opened the cash box. The contents of the cash box were scooped up, and the man sped away. A member of the police force was notified promptly. Okay. A very simple story, just about 4 lines. Now let's look at some questions. I'm going to ask you a few questions. And for each question, you can either answer true or false or not sure. Okay.
Okay.
The owner had turned off his store lights when a man appeared. True, false, not sure.
False.
Okay. Anyone else?
Not sure.
Why are you not sure?
Didn't the man appear when after the light was switched off?
No, it says the businessman had turned off. We don't know whether the businessman was the owner or not. It could be anybody. Yeah.
Okay.
The robber was a man. True or false?
Again, not sure.
Okay. Why?
This go back to the previous question. There's a bit of a confusion, and I think that's the same thing here.
But yeah, what is the confusion?
It was not clearly mentioned whether the robber was a man or a woman, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't say there was a robbery. It just says somebody came and demanded money. It could be a loan shark for all you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A man did not demand money.
No, false.
A man came and did demand money, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The man who opened the cash box was the owner.
Not sure.
Why is that?
False.
Yeah. Why is it false?
Because we don't know if it was the owner who came.
Mm-hmm.
It says the owner opened the cash box. We don't know if the owner is a man or a woman.
Right.
Someone opened the cash box.
True.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because somebody had opened the cash box. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great. Right. So what happened? I mean, when we were answering these questions, what was going through your mind?
Just trying to recollect what was that you said previously. Probably a little bit of.
Yeah, so one is trying to recollect, but second is to look at some of the assumptions that we make, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when we say a businessman and then when we relate to owner, we tend to assume that it could be one and the same person. Or when we say that a business or a owner, we assume it could be a man, right? So there are certain assumptions that we all make in the way we think and the way we act. So I just want you to remember this when I address the topic. There is some of these would come up in terms of how we are dealing with themes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on to the topic itself. I'm going to talk about the team basics. What are the 3 essentials that are required in order to have a team? What are some of the guidelines that we can use to build a high-performing team? There are different stages in a team formation. What are those different stages in the curve? The characteristics of a high-performing team, and then a couple of slides on the goal setting itself and an approach that can be used for a performance management of teams. Okay. All right. So when you look at this triangle, just take a couple of seconds and then see what is the definition of team that comes to your mind.
Definition of team, you're asking.
Yeah.
Definition of a team that where a group of people work together to achieve a set goal.
Right. Anyone else? Any other perspectives? Yeah, Chinmay, you had something.
Yeah, quality work.
Quality work, okay. What else?
Result oriented.
Okay, result orientation, fantastic. Any other thoughts? All right. So if you look at it, a team is it's basically a group of people with complementary skill sets, be it technical, functional, or behavioral, right? Working towards a specific goal or a common, using a common approach, and holding each other accountable, right, in order to deliver some work products while achieving results and focusing on personal growth. Yeah. Now let's look at each of these elements to see what is it that we need to do to address that. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to spend some time on this slide because this is very important. Establishing common goals, right? Now, one of the important aspect as a leader or as an organization is to see what is the kind of purpose that we have created for ourselves, right? Now, when be it Together or be it Enabling Ventures or be it any other organization, there is a reason why we created this as an entity, right? There is a purpose behind which that was created. So it is very important that this purpose is articulated in a way that that the teams or the individuals can connect to it. Right? I'll give you an example. Right now, let us say that I have a statement that says, building affordable housing for women and children in Bangalore. Right. And I'm going to give you another statement that says raising the dignity of women and children by building affordable housing. Which one has more emotional connect?
Second one.
Yeah, and what is the reason?
I think because you use the word dignity, I suppose the statement was almost the same.
Absolutely right. The first one, in both cases, we are building affordable housing. But in the first one, it's just a matter of fact where I said we are doing that affordable housing. It was a very task specific aspect. Whereas in the second one, we are talking about a cause, right? We are talking about the dignity and respect of individuals. And we are addressing this through affordable housing. So we are talking more about the why behind what we are doing, right? The reason why we exist as an entity, the reason why we exist as an individual, right? So it is very important for the leader of the organization and for the team members to understand why do we exist, right? And this why is what is going to drive you to do whatever you are doing, right? This is what motivates you, and it has to be narrated in a way that it motivates you and drives your team members to believe that yes, this is the reason why I should go to work today. This is the reason why I want to do what I'm doing today, because I am part of a larger ecosystem which is trying to achieve something big, right? So once the purpose is achieved, the next one is to see how can this purpose be translated into a team goal. Right now, whether it is a customer servicing team or whether it is an organizational enablement team like HR or finance or facilities, it could be any team, but every team needs to align to that common purpose of the organization and hence the common goal that is going to be set for the team. So as a leader, is it possible for me to understand what the purpose is and translate it into a team goal? Right, and this is very important because then the team relates to what the goal is, and the team also is able to understand how is their contribution impacting the overall purpose of the organization. See, today it is very important for each one of us to feel included, right? Get that kind of visibility, understand which piece of the puzzle am I, right? What is it that I'm doing that is impacting the organization at large, right? So we need to be able to articulate that. And one way is to say, here is the purpose, here are the goals. Now, here are the activities that you are doing to achieve this goal and hence to achieve this purpose. And it is important for the leader to make sure that this traceability is achieved. Right? So get everyone's commitment to achieve the goal. So what can we do to do that, right? So once the goal is set, we ask the team members, so what is it that you are going to do to help achieve that goal? And this is the set of tasks, this is, let's say, a job description that each individual comes up for himself or herself to say that this is what I'm going to do to make sure that I'm going to achieve this goal, right? And this is a team activity. It is a teamwork that happens, which is, let's say, moderated by the leader, so that everybody is talking about their commitment and they're making this commitment in front of their other team members to say, yes, this is what I'm going to make sure happens to achieve this goal, right? And then once the commitment is made, now how do you make sure that there is a sustenance of it? You have to sustain the progress as well, right? So can we start looking at a structure or a system that is going to help us to review the performance of the individual members? And when I say review of the performance, I'm not talking about the individual organizational KRAs or the individual aspects, but from a team goal perspective, what is it that everybody committed, and what is it that everybody is trying to work on, or what is it that they have done in order to take care of this commitment. Yeah. And one way of making sure this happens is through a simple aspect of inquiry, right? A lot of times what I've seen in my experiences, it becomes a more of a telling mode. A leader comes and then there is a team member and they get into a discussion which becomes more of the leader telling and the team member listening to it, right? A lot of time it leads to conflicts, it leads to heartburns. But what is it that the leader can do differently is to ask questions, right? So when we say inquiry, we are asking questions. We are also being curious to understand what is going on in the other person's mind. So a leader can always come and say, look, here is the goal that we all agreed to, right? Because it was a more inclusive approach of coming up with the goals in the first place. And then here are the commitments that each of us made. Now, can you tell me what is it that you're doing, or what is it that you have done towards this goal, or what is the towards the commitment you have made? Now, it is possible that somebody did something, or possible that the person could not do anything. The challenge here is not to go and criticize the person when something has not happened, but more ask questions. Say, okay, so what is it that stopped you from doing it? What further support do you need from this team to make it happen, right? And what are some of the learnings that you have got because you have done it or because you have not done it? So the more questions we ask, the more the team member opens up and talks about it and takes responsibility for what he or she has done, right? But having said that, if the person is not progressing with respect to the commitment made week on week, then there is a need for the leader to have that one-on-one discussion to say, hey, you know what, this is what is the goal, this is the commitment you have made, but I'm not seeing this kind of a progress. I'm really concerned that the way that you are progressing is going to bring the entire team down. So what is bothering you, right? It could be personal, it could be professional, whatever it is important for the leader to understand this, provide that platform where the person can open up and address this. And even if it means the person is not ready to open up for the leader, you can always say, you know what, even if you're not okay to talk to me, I can find you the right resource to whom you can express this, because it is important that we address so that we can work as a team and we can be successful as a team, right? So there is a lot of importance and a lot of focus that needs to be given as a leader, as an organization, to arrive at what is the purpose as to why we exist today, right? Who's going to cry if we don't exist as an organization today, and why will they cry about it, right? And these are some of the questions to reflect so that we are able to arrive at the purpose, narrate it, right? I mean, I've had a couple of clients who came up with this brilliant purpose statement, but then what they did is, it was just yet another slide in a presentation, and it was just as a matter of fact explained to the audience. Now the challenge with that is, while I have a purpose statement, it does not create that kind of an emotional connect within me, right? I need to get emotionally connected to the cause that the organization stands for, the purpose behind which we have created. And a lot of times we also confuse purpose and profit. Profit is a byproduct, it is a function of the business. Whenever you are in a business, you have to generate profits, right? But that is not the sole reason why we exist. We exist because we are trying to achieve something. We are achieving, there is a cause behind it. So that is very important for us to highlight, and then derive your goals based on that. So now once that is done, there is the other option, which is the skill-based selection, right? Matrix of team members and skills, and agree on the behavioral norms. Now we saw in the previous slide that skills are very important, right? And each of us have our own strengths, our own skills, right? One important thing is not to be biased, but look at a person from a skill set perspective. And when I look at people, there are generally 4 different personalities that we all fall under. Some of them are very emotional in nature. They're very sensitive, very sentimental, like to talk to a lot of people, right? So they're very people oriented that way. Some of them are very, let's say, stimulated by intellectual ideas, driven by solutioning, driven by the big picture. There are few of us who are who are driven by analysis. We like data, we like reports, we like charts, we graphs, planning, right? Then the whole planning is more comfortable for us. And then there are a few of us who are more action oriented. We like to do things. We like to learn by doing things, trial and error, risk. So these are broadly four different personality types that anyone falls under. So as a leader, is it possible for us to understand what is the personality type of a team member? Is that person more emotional in nature, or is that person more creative in nature? If the person is more creative, am I reducing, or am I not utilizing the creativity by putting them into a very process oriented environment? Right, the creative person may ask, may have a lot of curiosity, may have a lot of why questions. But if I go and ask the person how things should be done, what is the plan for doing things, they may not necessarily have an answer to it, because they're focusing more on the idea, focusing more on the why. So there is a need for them to understand these personalities, understand the skill sets that we bring in, so that we are able to complement each other, right? I may be good in certain things, my team member may be good in something else. So are we
Hello?
able to understand and build this matrix of
Hello?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think that was by mistake, Gopal.
All right, okay, fair enough.
Right.
Okay, so the third aspect is the engagement with the individuals. See, I always insist that there is a need for the leader to have a one-on-one discussion with the team member, because the team member is not just a resource, but the team member is a person who has his or her own ambitions, aspirations, likes, dislikes, right? So, can we understand the person? Can we have that one-on-one discussion to say what drives this person, what is the need of this person at this point in time, right? What are the likes, dislikes? And when we are able to do that, then we are able to connect, have that connect, open up the platform for a better a trusting relationship, right? And then you will see the team members also coming and talking to you, and that paves the way for an open culture or a transparent culture, right? A relationship based culture. And second is to recognize positives. Let's focus on rewards and recognition. At the end of the day, everybody wants acknowledgement, everybody wants a recognition, right? It is not going to hurt for us to say that, hey, you did a the way you did this is very nice. And I'm going to talk about later on how to give some of these feedback as well, because when you say a good job, I don't know what is good. Yeah. So do we have a certain process in terms of recognizing people, right? What is it that we are able to acknowledge? And as a team, what is it that we have achieved? It could be let's say that as a team, we have an achievement board, for example, right? And on the board, we keep writing all the achievements that we have done on a weekly basis or on a daily basis. At the end of the month or at the end of the week or whichever time frame works, we look at the board and say, hey, do we have any achievements to talk about, to celebrate? If we don't, then there is a point of reflection to say, okay, so we have been doing this work for all these 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever time frame, but how come that we have not able to accomplish anything or achieve anything? Or rather, we don't have the feeling of accomplishment or achievement, right? Or if the board is full of accomplishments and achievements, then how does this align with the overall goal and overall business, right? So this also gives a way of helping the team stay motivated, feeling recognized and valuable. Okay, now let's look at the team stages, right? As I said, when a group of people come together, there are different stages that they have to go through before they become a fully functional team, right? And generally, we identify 4 stages of team formation. When the team is first formed, it is called as the forming stage, right? So here, people are being, let's say, inducted into the team. A team is formed. It could be a new team entirely, or it could be people who are being moved from different teams, right? It could be whatever it is. At a particular stage, there is something called as a forming stage. At this stage, people are very friendly, people are very let's say pally pally with each other, right? Because everybody is trying to understand what the other person is all about, right? So there is a bit of awareness, there is a bit of there is a sense of commitment to the team as to what the team is all about, and there is a sense of acceptance. But at this stage, it is at a very high level, it is a very superficial level, because we have really not understood the person, we have not really understood the strength, the weaknesses, the what the person is all about. So it is at a high level. So So as a leader, is it possible to bring this team together and make sure that that environment exists, or we create that kind of an ecosystem for people to kind of gel, right? And this is where the rapport building is very important, so that the leader is able to build rapport with every individual team member. Now, as we then progress, we enter something called as a storming stage. In the storming stage, everybody starts understanding more about the other person. So then they start understanding that there are different belief systems, there are different value systems, there are different assumptions being made, right? And so this team slowly starts getting into a conflicting mode. It has to be this way, it has to be my way. They're not very clear in terms of what the roles and responsibilities are, and then the teams are just being put into place and say, okay, now start work. So there is no clarity. So there is a lot of clarification that is required. The sense of belonging, it is more becoming a group within a team, right? So there are cliques that are getting formed, right? And at this point in time, the role of a leader is very important. The leader needs to establish the kind of clarity, right? So that is where setting the purpose, setting the goal, identifying the roles and responsibilities of individuals, and clearly articulating it is very important. And the leader needs to take a bit of an assertive stand there to say this is how it should be, right? And once again, building that rapport will help address the individual's need and attention to make sure that the storming is minimized, if not completely prevented. I mean, I'll give an example, right? I mean, one of the client that I was dealing with, this person was currently in business development, and there was a need for a client servicing activity, and there was this customer, who was, who had a lot of, let's say, work or a lot of, expectations. So there was a shortage of resource, and this person was removed, taken from the business development and given to client servicing. Right now, the person did not even understand what was supposed to be the responsibility, or what is the responsibility. Right now, the client, right, the person went in and started doing things. The client is happy, and the client said, "Okay, I need this person." But the person is not really interested in client servicing. No, the person is interested more in business development. Now there is a situation where the client is happy, but the individual is not happy. Right now, these are very tricky situations, because now the leader has to manage the need of the employee as well as the need of the client, right? So the more the leader is able to establish clarity, the more the leader is able to establish the responsibilities upfront, better it is, because then we know who is the right person for the right role and how the fitment should be handled. Now, as we cross the storm, as we finish the storming stage, we enter what is called as the norming stage. So here the team starts settling down. They understand what each person brings to the table. There's a lot of cooperation that happens. There is a lot of involvement that is happening. Everybody starts supporting each other, and then slowly the reality sinks in. And finally, we move into what is called as the performing stage, where the productivity is at its peak. There is a sense of achievement and accomplishment, and there is also a sense of pride belonging to this particular team, right? So if you notice, in each stage there is a different aspect that is happening. So as a leader, how do I flex my leadership style to suit the different stages? I can't stick to a particular style of leadership and say that this is what is my style and then work towards that, because it is possible that there are conflicts between the leader and the team members. There is a possibility that team members don't appreciate of the style of leadership that is being done. In which case, as a leader, can I keep changing my style depending on which stage am I or the need of it? But one thing that is common, which has to be done across all stages, is to have that one-on-one conversation with all team members, so that we understand how the person feels, what the person thinks, and we're able to sense these aspects of it. Okay, so here is something interesting. So Belbin is one of the researcher who had done some research and identified 9 different types that a person can, a personality types that a person can play when it comes to a team role. I will not be explaining in detail. I will be anyway sharing this slide and a lot of information available about the Belbin team roles in Google. There are specific assessments that you can take up to understand what specific role am I playing. But the idea here is, like I said, how the individuals fit into the broad categories of emotional, idea driven, or analytical driven, there are 9 different types of roles that a person can play. For example, if you take resource investigator, the resource investigator is a person who is generally very outgoing, very enthusiastic, explores opportunities and develop contacts. So here is a person who is more of a foot in the door type. Okay, so let me get the initiative going, let me get the right stakeholders and get that buzz. And once that is done, right, the person wants to move on to something else because they like variety, they like change, right? They don't prefer to work on a task which is, let's say, which is long term, which is mundane. So that might be over optimistic and can lose interest once the initial enthusiasm has passed, right? So they might forget to follow up on a lead, right? So now after I create the buzz and you give them an action item to say, okay, now you have to follow up, they may not necessarily do that, right? They may instead want to look for some other initiatives, look at some other change that can happen. In which case, can we identify who in our team is somebody who acts like a resource investigator? Now, who is a team worker, who is very cooperative, very perceptive, very diplomatic, listens to all of them, and can be, but however, finds a bit of, let's say, indecisiveness, right? The person may not be ready to make decisions, right? Now it could be many things, right? Because I don't want to be left out from the team, and so I would rather just go with the team even though I may not agree with what the team says, right? So this is what we call as group think, right? I'm agreeing with whatever the team is saying. I don't agree personally, but I don't want to be left out, right? So then how do I work with how do I identify these kind of individuals? So likewise, we have different roles: a coordinator or a plant or a monitor, evaluator or specialist. Then we have shapers and implementers. So again, as a leader, can I identify these types? It is not necessary that you need to have all these types in your team members, but there are, whoever is existing in your team member, do you know what type they are? Do you know what is the strength that drives them? Do you know what is the motivation that drives them? And hence, are you assigning the right type of jobs, right type of roles or responsibilities to them, so that there is a sense of job satisfaction, there is a sense of happiness in what they do, right? And that is very key for you to retain them so that they are able to achieve that. And if wherever there is a need for job rotations, to make sure that they put they kind of do whatever they enjoy doing, is there a possibility of doing that as part of the organization? Okay, so before I get into characteristics, any questions so far in what I've covered?
If anybody would like to ask some questions, please do.
I had one regarding the organization goal and the translation to teams. Is it necessary for the team to relate to the organization goal, or do we have to translate it every time for what it means to the team?
See,
so yeah,
sorry,
so
go ahead. Yeah.
the idea here is that we might have an organization goal as I don't know, being the best coffee makers in the world, for example. But for the technology team that does the delivery part of it and does the online navigation part of it, that could mean something else. And for the roasters and everyone else, that could mean something else. So my question is that, do we translate that goal down to each team, or should we just tell them that this is the organization goal and you should find what it means for yourself, for the team and for you?
Right. So it's a good question, right? Because what we are trying to establish through this is, how do I bring in the stickiness to the goals with the various teams, right?
Yeah.
Now I've defined the purpose, I've defined the organizational goals, and the organizational goals could be in multiple areas. It could be financial, it could be right, people related, or it could be whatever is the theme that we have. Now it is important to see how does this translate in for each of the teams, right? Now, like you said, the engineering team may relate it in a different way, right? So this is what I do. So whatever I do, how does that help you become the best coffee maker, right? Or the roasting team, whatever they do, how does it help them achieve that goal?
Yeah.
So while you have the overall goal, can you then let's say slice and dice it so that it is relatable to the team that they are in? So what is it that the engineering team has to do so that you become the best coffee maker? Or what is it that the sales team has to do for you to make that? Or what is it the roasting team has to do?
Okay.
If all of these goals can then trace back. It is possible for them to, let's say, relate what they do to do it. Because if I'm not able to relate to the larger goal, right,
Yeah.
through whatever channels and means, I'm not sure what is it that I'm doing in this organization, right? How am I making a difference? I just come here, I do some task and I go back. I'm not able to see the big picture, right?
Yeah.
So the more you're able to, let's say, emphasize on it, the better it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'll move on. Any more questions? We'll take it up in the end. So there are 7 characteristics of a high performing team, right? All right. So let's look at the 7 characteristics, purpose and values, which we have talked about it at length. I cannot stress the importance of it more. It is very important to define the purpose, because that is why you exist. And the values are equally important, because the values are your guiding principles on how we are going to achieve the purpose, right? If have any of you seen the Golden Circle, the Simon Sinek's YouTube videos, where he talks about the why, how, and the what, right? If you have not, I encourage you to go and see that. It's a very excellent video. It talks about how an organization should define its purpose, and how and the what. So the why, how, and what of the organization. Yeah. And the values are more of your how and the guiding principles. And what is important is the value doesn't remain as a value or like a word, right? It has to be translated into behavior, right? Because at the end of the day, what we see is the behavior. That is all we can observe, right? So somebody says trust is a value. So how are you demonstrating trust? What is trust in my organization? What is the definition of trust? And hence, how am I demonstrating it, right? It doesn't make sense for an organization to say, I trust my people, and then put all the attendance tracking mechanism to say, are you at work or not, right? It becomes, so in a way you are saying that, there is somewhere a lack of trust. Yeah. So how am I defining my values, especially in terms of behaviors? How am I demonstrating these behaviors? And how are my organizational policies and process aligned to these values? So that is very important for us to, let's say, put in place. Now, once I've done my purpose and values, now this is a word. There are certain organizations where it is more on paper, right? So a team is more self-driven. The team is more capable of making their decisions and are able to do what they need to do to achieve their goal, right? And building a process, or a system which creates unnecessary dependency doesn't give the sense of empowerment, right? I need to be able to empower to do what I need to do to achieve my goal, right? So that's why it is important for the leader to say what is the goal, but then leave it to the team member to say how am I going to achieve the goal. And if I'm going to achieve the goal this way, I need XYZ support, and can the organization provide that kind of support, right? So how can I empower my team, either through whatever decision making they have to do, or whatever process and policy then I need to put, so that they're seen as enabling communication. Absolutely important. I mean, communication is something very critical, be it in our personal or professional life. And I've seen a lot of challenges because of communication, be it as a counselor where I counsel people, counsel couples. When they come, there is a lot of communication issue on the personal front. On the professional side, again, there is a lot of communication or clarity issues when we talk about it, right? How as a leadership team am I communicating with clarity what is it that the organization is all about, where are we today with respect to that, and how far are we from our goals, and what do we need to do? So how can we bring in that kind of a communication? And in communication, of course, there are multiple elements to it. Listening, right? Big thing. Empathy, right? And inquiry, asking questions. Body language, right? So we say there are 5 aspects that you need to look out for. The congruence. Am I thinking, am I feeling, am I behaving all in alignment, right? I can be thinking something but I'm doing something else, then that's not a congruent system, right? For example, I want to say no but I end up saying yes, right? And we talk about assertiveness, but then it also shows lack of integrity, because you are not being true to yourself where you are thinking something and then you are doing something else. Absence of something, some people will tend to ramble upon without focusing on what is the exact core issues that they need to talk about, right? So in which case can I identify that and say, okay, hey, you are talking about all these things, but what is essence is this? And then presence. The body language, inferences I make, inference I can make, and resistance. I'll try doing this, I don't know if this will work. So these are some of the statements that you may hear, but that means the person is probably having some resistance towards those changes. So are we able to observe all these things during communication and building that relationship, right? Again, it is a relationship between two individuals, not just with a resource, right? So how can I focus on that? Flexibility, so this is another key area, right? A lot of times what happens is we are all glued to our titles or roles or designations. So I'm a software engineer, or I'm a tester, or I'm a designer, right? But these are only titles and roles, and when we limit ourselves to only these titles, that becomes a learning disability for us, right? Because when you are not open to learning what else has to be done in order to achieve the goal. I have a goal as a team and I've done my work, but if I can take something else and achieve that goal, that is more important than saying, okay, I'm just this, what my title says, and I'm going to just stick to that title, right? Then there is no flexibility in that. One. Second is in flexibility in terms of accepting ideas, right? It is not about always my way or the highway, but if I hear ideas, am I providing a platform for my team members to express these ideas? And how do I integrate these ideas to come up with a common idea that achieves a common goal? Optimal productivity, this is very important. This is where we start putting structures in place. We put measurements, metrics, right? Look at result orientation, look at quality, look at attention to detail. So these are all the various aspects that you need to be putting in place to make sure that the team is productive. Recognition and appreciation, we about what is your rewards and recognition, what is it that you appreciate for. So if you have a value and if somebody is able to demonstrate it, are you able to appreciate the person for that, right? And finally, the morale of the team, how do you keep the team morale high, right? What is it that motivates an individual? What are the needs of the individual? So these are factors which needs to be considered when you are looking at developing a team, right? As a team, am I having my purpose and values clear? Am I empowering my team members? Am I building the right type of relationship through proper communication? Am I being flexible, right? Am I being productive? Recognition, morale, right? uh, Ultimately, am I helping my team to be self-driven, and I'm just as a leader holding the space for them to be self-driven? And this will happen only when we start believing in people, right? We trust people to say, I know you can do it. Probably you need some support. I am here to provide that support, rather than thinking you can't do it, you're lazy, you know, unless I tell you, you're not going to do it. And that's a different mindset, and that's not going to work, right? So believe in people and see how we can use some of these aspects to drive your high performing teams. I'm now displaying this slide that says team process observation list. Here are some points which as a leader you can let's say observe, right? And this is a very important skill set that the leader should pick up in terms of am I observing my people enough to understand what are their behavioral patterns, right? Somebody, so who is high, who is low, what is happening in a meeting, is this person contributing, not contributing? And especially when there is a shift in the behavior, we see a person who is behaving in a specific way and all of a sudden the person goes into a shell, starts stops talking and is very quiet. These behaviors shifts and changes, and then go back to the person and say what is happening, right? Influences, so who is listening to, who is emerging as an informal leader, right? I don't have, I mean, leadership is not in title, right? It is not based upon designation, it is upon the influence that you have on your people. So who is coming out as an influential person? Are there people who are you know, who everybody listens to, right? Are there certain people who are getting into to be quiet? Change? Did the team change? You know, so we started off having a very cordial discussion, nice rapport building, and everything seems to be nice. And then as we progress, suddenly it becomes very confrontational, very critical, right? So we notice the shift, and then say, understand why is the shift happening. So how do we bring it back into a more cordial environment, right? Who is an outsider in the group? Is there a subgroup? Like I said, there are cliques that are formed. It could be based on various factors, right? Just because you speak my language, okay, we two are together, right? And this person speaks a different language, it's a different person. So there is a possibility of it, but can we identify those and remove those aspects so that we are able to function as a single team, right? And so other task initiatives, information seeking, clarifying. So there's a whole bunch of things that needs observation. Why is this important? Also because only when I start observing, I'm going to give you more meaningful feedback on how your behavior should change. Otherwise, there is no way I'm going to be helping you to understand what your behavior patterns are and what is the change that you need to go through, right? So very, very important that a leader observes this. Okay. So far we have talked about what are the various aspects that we can do from a team building perspective, right? Your, the characteristics of what is a high performing team, what are the things that as guidelines we can do instead of purpose, goals, skill sets. Now let us look at the goals itself, right? Because this is very critical. A lot of times what I see is organization, while they do have their goal processes and goal setting process, it does not necessarily align to the timelines, right? For example, you may say that April to March is my cycle for setting goals, but come April or come May, you probably don't even have the organizational goals ready, or you don't even have the individual goals ready, right? I have a situation where somebody comes and joins the organization and says, I don't know what my goals are, right? It's been 3 months, it's been 4 months, and I'm just here, I'm just doing things, right? So it becomes very transactional in nature, right? So imagine all of us getting, but everybody says, let's go, right? Now, where do we go, right? And how do we measure whether we are going in the right direction or not, right? So it is very important to set the goal, but the goal has to make sense, right? I mean, I'm sure most of you or all of us very looking at themselves, looking at transformation. They say, okay, I want to stay healthy because health is one of the area of life that I want to focus. And if they say I want to lose weight, that is not going to be a meaningful goal, because losing weight, while it could be relevant, because when I lose weight or when I when I trim some of these excess fat, it could me stay healthy, but it does not give, it is not, let's say, measurable at this point in time, right? August 2020, then I'm giving a timeline, right? And I'm also saying this is the kind of measurement that I have, which means I need to lose X amount of kg in X amount of time frame. This is much more measurable, and it is still, it is related to what the overall purpose or overall goal is, right? So that is where we are looking at. Yeah. Okay. So if you have already set your goals, you may want to relook at these goals to say how these goals are. Right? If you have not set, then there is perhaps something that you can consider while setting these goals at organization level as well as at the individual level. Am I being clear, or is it still breaking now?
Now it's clear. We're okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, let me move on to the next slide. How you are giving feedback on an ongoing basis and how you're setting goals. Right? A lot of times what I've seen is the feedback happens either at the end of the year or depending on the cycle. Right? If the organization says I have once in 6 months a review cycle, then once in 6 months a review happens, right? And that's when I give the feedback. And the feedback, like I mentioned, is likely to be more of a telling mode. The leader comes prepared saying that this is what these are the things that you have done or not done, and hence here is a rating. right? I mean, I've had clients where they say that on a daily basis, I talk about the positive, so the reviews only for the negatives, right? Now that's really very demotivating for a person who's sitting there and listening only to the negative aspects of it. Yeah. So how can these reviews happen so that we are able to help people? Have regular one-on-one sessions with your team members. This is very critical, irrespective of what the goal cycles are, right? Whether you do it a quarterly or whether you do it once in 6 months or a year, right? Can I have a one-on-one session, if possible, every week, right? If not every fortnight, or at least once a month, I should have spoken to my team member about how they are progressing towards the goals, but more importantly, what is it that they enjoy doing, right? And there are a few questions that I'll talk about in the next slide, and that you can ask your team members. So, what is it that they enjoy doing? What is it that they want to be doing, and what kind of support they need? So even in a performance review, what is important is you allow the team member to talk first. There is a lot of reflection that the team member has to go through. So as a leader, can I start the conversation, setting the context and say, member, no, you guys talk more, right? And performance review is a two-way process. It happens throughout the year, right? Which means it is not about just me telling you what to do, but you're also telling me, right, how things are in place and what is it that I need to do as a change, right? Avoid surprises, right? That I keep telling you that everything off guard. And second is you're also not giving enough time for the person to respond or react. I mean, there is no point in telling me because they to make sure that the goals are achieved. The performance management should focus on development. Just 1 minute. Yeah. So again, the performance, the whole intention here is to say, how do I help the person develop rather than put the person down? It is not about the rating, or it is not about saying this or that. I mean, gone are those days where we used to have these bell curves and stuff. But can I now focus more on what is it that you need to learn and do so that you're able to develop? Okay. These sessions should be more formal. It cannot be a water cooler talk. It cannot be a more spontaneous discussion and say, okay, you know what, let's go and have this discussion. These reviews need to be a bit more formal. Schedule it and make sure that you adhere to the timelines, because when you share the other person is to say you are not important. Right? There is something more important that I need to go and handle. You are not, right? And that's not a very good message that you want to pass on to the person. Okay. Back. So this is another key aspect. We always think that as a manager, I am the one who is supposed to give feedback, but it is equally important for you to receive feedback, right? The individual has to also share what is it that you can start, stop, and continue to help the team perform better, to help the individual perform better. Right? And I usually use this framework. And I ask my team members, I say, okay, what do you think I can start doing that will help you perform better? What is it do you think I should continue doing because it is already helping you perform? And what do you think I should stop doing because it is coming in the way of your performance? Plans so that I'm able to go and execute those. But most importantly, once you take the feedback, you have to go back to them, say, what is the action plan? So take the feedback only when you are in a state of mind to receive feedback. There's no point in asking your team members to start defending yourself about it, right? and that's not going to help. The person is going to cheat you. Most important thing is listen, and this is very key, because a lot of times what we do is we say we are listening, but then we are busy doing something else, and that's not listening. That's just hearing, right? When we listen to what is said, what is not said, right? And for you to listen to what is not said, you have to start observing people, right? Okay. And when you give feedback, quickly before I jump into the feedback, don't say it's a good job, right? Because I don't know what is good according to you, and I don't know. But if I say that, hey, I like the way that you had arranged for this meeting, I like the way all the preparation was taken on time, I like the way you I like the presentation. So then there are very so I Wi-Fi or anything. So I'm not sure if there is still breaks. Are you
Now
guys able to hear clearly, or is there a disturbance?
it is fine now, but probably sometime later there's a lot of disturbance again.
Okay. All right. So let's try this. If it's still disturbed, then I'll try to switch back to another Wi-Fi and see if that's going to make any difference. Okay. All right. So like I said, the feedback has to be very specific, instead of saying good job or you can do better, because everybody can do better, right? When you say you can do better, it is a very, it's a very useless feedback, honestly, right? But if you say that, I was very concerned with the way things were progressing in this meeting, I felt, or I wish you could have, set the context in a much more clearer manner, and then you could have progressed. So then the person is able to identify a specific area to work, other than saying that, okay, good job, or it can do better, or nice, right? These are all statements which I encourage you to always acknowledge. It is not about you did a good job. I like the way you did this, right? So it should be more of this. But giving and receiving feedback is a whole complete topic altogether, and we'll take it up some other time. Let's see. That you can ask your team members as part of one is functional or technical knowledge, and one is what did I know about myself, and what do you look forward to doing in the next 3 months, right? Um, how can I add value to your growth, right? So that is also a very important question. Okay, give me 1 minute. I'm going to switch the Wi-Fi again and see if this is going to make any difference, because I still see a lot of messages that says there is disturbance, right? Okay. We probably have just a couple of more slides to go. Just give me.
Yeah, I think we just lost it completely. In the beginning of this slide.
Acha, okay.
Right.
Is it better now?
It is better now. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was saying is these are some of the questions that you can ask your team members as part of your one-on-one sessions or reviews. The whole idea is ask questions so that they are able to think and reflect and come back with solutions rather than you providing solutions. Because when you do that, there is a dependency relation that gets built. Whereas you want your team members to become independent, right? So that they are able to think for themselves and start coming up with solutions. So how can I facilitate that? So what are the questions I can ask so that they are able to achieve that? So that is the intention of this. Of course, and once you have asked these questions, you can then share your feedback saying that, okay, now can I share my observation and say, this is what it is, right? Okay. Let's see the next slide. Okay. So this is something called as I've seen companies where they start doing performance ratings. So on a scale of 1 to 5, they rate individuals as 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever is the rating based upon. So what I was saying here is, see, a lot of times what happens is when we use the performance rating based approach, the people end up negotiating on the ratings rather than looking at what the goal is. So focus should be more on goal achievement. So when I set a goal, I can either achieve the goal or I did not achieve the goal or I exceeded the goal. So if we can look at the quarterly reviews to focus more on whether the goal has been achieved or not, at the end of the year, then we look at how did the individual perform, right? So then we look at their performance measures, their technical competence, the result orientation, quality, and other factors. We also look at the potential of the person. How is this person aligning to the organizational values? How is he or she being the ambassador for the organization? Are they showing the learning orientation? Are they showing aspirations to grow, right? So there are few parameters that you can look at to measure the potential of the person, and your KRA is to measure the performance of the person. And based on these two, you put the individual in one of these boxes. So somebody who's at a high performance, high potential could be your future leaders. And likewise, you have your high performance, moderate potential, and likewise. Now, the advantage of doing this is one, it helps you build your, let's say, successors. And this is a challenge, right? Whether you are a startup or whether you are a mid-size or wherever you are, or even a larger organization, it is always important for you to identify who is going to be my successor, right? And only when I'm able to identify my succession plan, I will also be able to grow up, right? Otherwise, I'm going to be, let's say, having the dependency with the team, and I will not be able to see my progress. So one, can I identify my successors? Can I come up with individual development? The way you coach a person who is high performing, high potential could be very different from the way you coach a person who has high potential but is not performing, right? So you need to identify moderate potential and moderate performance. So there is a lot of individual plan that comes based upon this. The focus on development, as I said, it has to be focusing on development than a negotiation of ratings. uh, Goals every quarter. See if you can set the goals on a quarterly basis, because if you set a yearly goal, situations might change in between. The goal becomes meaningless if the situation has changed or if the context has changed. So can we set quarterly goals and then review the goal completion at the end of the quarter, keeping in mind how the individual has performed? It is possible that they achieved whatever they wanted to achieve, or they did not achieve, but what effort did they put in order to achieve that? Assessing performance at the end of the year, like I said, and looking at various competencies that that can be used to measure both the performance and the potential, right? So this is about the potential. Like I said, engaging with the activities. Are they engaging in all the organizational activities, taking part in the various initiatives that are there? And I'm at the slide which gives about example behaviors. So for each of the grid, can we identify what are the behaviors that says whether the person is a low performer, high potential, or a moderate performer, high potential? These are some samples that you can use as guidelines to come up with your own behavioral statements to say, yes, if the person demonstrates all this, then the person is going to be in this particular grid, right, or the other grid. And this gives you much clarity. Then you know what percentage of your organization is actually performing, what percentage is not, and hence what kind of let's say risk mitigation activities that you have to undertake. So that's kind of all that I had wanted to share with respect to enhancing teams, reviews, and performance. No, I was done with it. I was just asking, are there any questions or any comments?
Okay, so guys, so we are now in a Q&A session. So if anybody's got questions, feel free to ask. Gopal, please. Anybody's got questions?
We kind of lost Gopal on the last slide, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I will just complete that because somebody said, they lost it. The 3 slides that I've shown here are basically example behavioral indications of whether the person belongs to a particular grid or not, right? Whether they are low performer or moderate. Based on these behavioral indication, you can you can put the person in a particular grid. And once you know this, then you know how the picture looks like in your organization. What is the what percentage are high performers, high potentials, and what percentage are not, and accordingly roll out your training programs and your development programs. So that's pretty much what I had to share today. There is basically say that these are other programs we offer in terms of understanding your, which is like a 7 session series, a wellness series. This is very important considering the current situations. We provide platforms where individual can deal with their primary emotions and what triggers. And then we focus specifically on building high performing teams, which is a 3-month program where we help the organization walk through the process that we just discussed. All right, so that brings me to the end. I'm okay to take questions now.
Yeah. Hi, Magam here.
Yes, Magam.
Yeah. So the thing is, we always have this big fight, not fight actually, in our minds, in our thoughts basically, that there are like we always see these 2 sides of the table within the same organization. One team would always like to be proactive and get things done faster and try to move ahead. And there are other teams who who just doesn't probably like the first team feels the complete ownership, and they always try to live up to the things and probably go beyond whatever they should do. And there are other set of people who are just like 9 to 5, like I come at 9, okay, my hours are over and then I'm leaving now. And they do not have any kind of ownership, or they do not have any kind of thinking that that is empathizing with the company that they're working for. So these sometimes we just feel so frustrated that like if there is a cancer in your body, you just want to get rid of that. So like rather than killing the entire body. And it's sometimes it's extremely demotivating for other people because they would also start questioning like why am I doing what I'm doing, like while others are just happily enjoying their life. And this kind of thing is becoming extremely disturbing for while we are handling our larger teams. And this also is a big question mark because and in the current situation, though we are all let's say at home, or we are not able to come to office, but at the same time we have to feel highly responsible to bring some change with respect to our organization and try to move it forward. But the problem is this can only happen when the entire set of team is working towards the same goal. So if there is a split in the thought process, how do we make the other bunch, pick up with the phase? Or is it the best way to get that humor out? That's it.
Yeah, so see, there are 2 aspects. Getting them, replacing them is probably, I wouldn't necessarily say an easier option because you have to find a replacement as well. But asking them to leave is probably the easier option. But we also need to understand what is it that prevents them from getting into that commitment mode, right? So I always say there is a difference between commitment and compliance. And as you rightly said, just because I'm there 9 to 5 doesn't mean I'm committed. It could be just compliance. But if I understand what my team goal is, then I will do whatever it takes to make sure that the goal is achieved, right? And I'm not really worried about the 9 to 5 part of it. And this is where there is a need to bring that clarity of what is it that as an organization we are trying to achieve, what is the common team goal, and what is the commitment that we have to make. Now, for those individuals who are very highly motivated and action driven, maybe that's their personality based, where they kind of keep themselves occupied. They are fully driven because they understand the cost, they understand what it all means to them. The other individuals who are not able to see that, perhaps there should be a one-on-one to understand what are they missing, right? Are they not able to connect with it? Are they not able to see that, right? Are they not happy with the kind of job they are doing? Would there be a different role that will keep them happy? So like I said, if I'm a very creative person, if I'm asked to follow something which is very procedural, very very mundane, I may not be very thrilled about doing it, right? So in which case, is it okay for me to ask and say, okay, so what is the job that will help you keep happy, right? What is your current need and how it is happy? I mean, my suggestion is, of course, just to have that one-on-one with the individuals and understand where they come from, what is preventing them from having that commitment. Look at what is the team goal and bring about all the individuals to say how they commit, right? And then keep tracking it. But at the end of the day, I mean, if their purpose, of their individual purpose or of their individual goal is not aligning with the organizational goal, then maybe that is not their best place, right? And that's not the best combination to have.
Okay, cool. Just one more question. Thanks for the answer. Uh, this thing is about, like, for example, whenever we get somebody into the organization, we always say that there are certain values that we live up to, and the core values, and we tell them that, for example, anybody tells them that there are 5 values. One is integrity, and we have a equal opportunity, freedom, and freedom of thought, freedom of expression, and so stuff like that. So and at the same time, with great freedom comes with a great responsibility. And most of the people that join, they just pick up what they are very comfortable with. Like, for example, let's say the freedom is very good, so I'll pick that up, and then equal opportunity is very good, I'll pick that up. But see, the thing is, you picked up the freedom of coming anytime and going anytime, or nobody's. See, the thing is, we don't breathe on people's neck in our organization because we don't believe in that. So we would rather think people are self-driven, and they will anyways deliver at any cost, and then remaining time let them do what, because they're anyways doing it. So that's how we want the organization. But there is this set of people who just pick up only what is required. Like, okay, fine, I have a lot of freedom, I'll come at this time, go at this time. But when it comes to deliverables, that will not happen. And so this kind of thing is very, very at the same time, we don't want to breathe on people's neck. So how do we get this thing inculcated in minds?
Yeah, I understand, right? So there are certain values of the organization, but people are picking and choosing the value they will demonstrate, right? Which is more convenient for them, and leave out the other aspect of it, right? Now, a couple of things that I've done for other clients is, one, we do a lot of value awareness sessions where we say what is the reason why this value has to be demonstrated, right? Like you said, integrity, right? Now, I will never be able to have a trustworthy relation with you if I don't see you as somebody who's having integrity, right? And how does that go? Let's say, one, against the person and against the organizational goals as well, right? Now, and then we do something called as a 360 survey, where we ask a feedback from each team member about a particular member on how are they demonstrating their values. Then give a rating based on that to say, here is where you are from a value awareness and a value performance, and what is it that you can do to improve, right? And again, in spite of all that, they still don't perform. The question goes back to, are we recruiting the right set of people, right? And because values are some of your guidelines to get you the right person as well.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm not sure if it is the same set of people who are 9 to 5. If it is the case, then I can understand where you're coming from. Yeah. See, perhaps as a leader, what you can encourage is asking questions to those individuals to say what made them choose only these 2 out of the 5. Right.
Okay.
Maybe they have not understood the definition of those other values, or they're not able to demonstrate it, or they think that it is already there. So I'm just picking the 2 which I want to demonstrate. Right.
Okay.
So, and here is where the assumptions are probably kicking in, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
instead of assuming, can I say, okay, you know what, you just picked up this freedom as a value, right? And I understand you want that flexibility. What about integrity? How do you think you are demonstrating that? Right?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you are not demonstrating. I'm only asking you, how are you demonstrating? Yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
and what is integrity? Those will probably help them to come out and talk about it, and then you will realize maybe there is a gap in their understanding, or it's just gap in your understanding, and see how you want to align.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. That's about it for me.
Okay, Gopal, I have a question.
Yeah, Nima.
Yeah, so Gopal, my question is, since we're a startup and Magam has rightly pointed out the fact that, we have individual autonomy to take decisions and, even come up with suggestions. So over the period of time, what we found out is that we've got individuals who come up with great ideas, okay? But somewhere we see that, the ideas are stagnated in one position and, there's no implementation that is carried forward. So I think that is a kind of a bummer for a startup like us, because we want people who not just ideate but also are good implementators, right? So I think we've also kind of tried doing a review pattern where we've kind of tried understanding from people that what is it that has not helped you to take this prop idea forward and do the implementation. People have come up with weird you know uh, things as to why this not happened. So I think we are in a state where we just coming up with reasons to not make things happen, rather than doing taking that extra effort to make that extra walk that extra mile. So I think this is where we are currently. We're getting great ideas on board, we're getting good processes, but I think we're lacking that initiation to make that happen. So
Yeah. So Rima, a couple of things that I can think of, right? One is, if we are getting a lot of great ideas, that's so definitely to be appreciated. Also, the other side of it is, are these people who are stimulated because of idea generation? Like I said, there are individual personalities who like ideas, who like solutioning, but they may not necessarily be the action-oriented people, right? In which case, are we having a mix of people who can come up with ideas, but who can then translate these ideas into a plan and then plan into an action, right? So are we so do we have such a mix of team members? And if yes, can we then take the idea and give it to the person who is an action-oriented person to implement it? Second is, it is possible that we are getting into let's say, an idea whirlpool, right? We keep throwing a lot of ideas and we are not able to decide on what idea to implement, right? So in which case, there is something called as six thinking hats, where we take an idea and then we dissect it, where everybody talks about the idea, the positives of it, the negatives of it, the risk of it, and then decide whether this idea is good to go or not. If it is not, then you ignore it for now, and then pick up an idea which is implementable, and then give it to the person who can implement. Second thing is, it is likely that focus is more on problems rather than solution, right? I have an idea, but I have this roadblock, I have this roadblock, I have this roadblock. So can we make them think around, okay, so what is the outcome you want, right? So can you define the final solution or the final outcome, and then how do you want to achieve that? So changing their thought process from problem centric to a solution centric.
okay.
Hi Gopal, Yashwin here.
Yeah, Ashwin.
So I had a question regarding basically when we decide to, for example, execute on an idea, we set some timelines and kind of say that okay, by this time something has to be done or something like that, and due to some XYZ reasons, maybe the timeline isn't made properly or whatever, but due to some XYZ reasons, we usually see that gets pushed forward. Now, as somebody who's kind of coordinating and making sure this entire thing happens, how do you deal with this kind of, aspect, and kind of have that conversation with that person that has caused the delay, or kind of has, is somewhat responsible, without actually being confrontational or kind of, negative about it? So you can easily find yourself to kind of, point fingers at others, say that, because of you this didn't happen, or because of such reasons that you were responsible for, it didn't happen. And that becomes very confrontational in a sense, and people get like, people tend to get personal about that. So is there any other way to kind of, make sure that when timelines are set, the people who are responsible are actually delivering, and then the people who aren't delivering are talked to in a way that kind of, we can explain to them and kind of make them understand and try to hear their side out or something? Is there anything like that?
Sure. So one, when you are, let's say, running on a tight deadline or a critical project, we have to make sure the team understands this goal, right, and the impact of not meeting those timelines. Right, they need to be aware, and we have to make sure that every team member working on the project is aware that yes, I need to be on top of things so that I can deliver it as promised. If not, this is going to be the impact for me as well as for the organization, right? Second, in spite of that, let's say there is some delay, and we know that they're not progressing the way they should have progressed. Having that one-on-one with them to say, ask questions, right? Rather than saying you have delayed it, saying that, okay, so where do you see yourself with respect to this task, right? From the timelines, what we see, what I see is we should have been here, whereas in point A, whereas we are in point B, and I'm concerned at this rate we may not be able to meet our team goal. What do you think is happening, right? What is stopping you? How can I help you, or how can I support you, right?
Yeah.
Put the question back to the person and see what the person comes and says. If he says no, everything is okay, I think we can make it, or I can't make it, you can also express, see, I understand that you believe you can make it, but for me to get that belief, I need to see something. So what is it that you can share on a regular basis that helps me, that gives me the confidence that yes, we are making it, right? So when you put it across in a way that everything comes from me, right, I'm concerned that this is what it is, or I would like to have that clarity, right? Then the person, then we are not having a you kind of a statement, right? That then when you start that way, that's when the person becomes very defensive,
Yeah.
right? So, but when I say, look, I am concerned at this rate that we may not be able to meet our team goals. So, what do you think we can do? You are again expressing your feeling of it. The person cannot deny whether that you are concerned or not, right? I mean, you are concerned, right? You are feeling upset about it. You do it once, you do it twice, the person is still not changing, and say, look, I'm upset that in spite of our 2-3 discussions we have had, I'm not seeing progress, right? And I would like you to really let me know what is bothering so that I can help you, right? I don't want to be in a situation where we come to the deadline and we realize that this has not happened, because there is a larger stake at there is something larger at stake, right?
Yeah.
And I also see the other team members getting frustrated because of this. So what do you think you can do to change this, right?
Yeah.
And if that person says that, okay, he's not liking the job, then that's a mitigation that we have to say, okay, perfectly understandable, but what can we do, right? So always approach it more from an I perspective and ask questions so that the person comes back with solution.
Okay. So just if I could follow up what you just said. Sometimes people might be open about it and be frank about their problems, and you can understand that. And sometimes you can, if there's anything you can do in your own capacity, you would end up doing that for them as well. But so it kind of goes into two prongs here, where one is that if someone answers, when do you know when to draw the line that you're not doing all that work for them, just as as masquerading as help. And B is that what if they just don't answer, or just close up, or kind of don't have like any kind of response to the question that you're asking. So I could say that I am concerned that because of some XYZ reason that this is not happening, can you tell me what's happening? So they would either close up completely and not be truthful, or if they do kind of open up and describe this is the problem I'm facing, where is the line that you draw that okay, I will help you out and kind of help this happen, and but how many times am I supposed to do that? Because as in a startup or something, we're all doing, like, we're all juggling multiple items simultaneously, and then adding more thing on top. Where do you draw the line is the question.
Yeah. See, when the person is not opening up, that means something is bothering the person, right? It is possible that, let's say, the past experiences or what is the type of relationship that exists could all be influencing it. But when you have noticed it, you can always say that, look, I see that something is bothering you, but I also see that you are not comfortable sharing it with me. Is there someone else that you want to share it with, right? And if there is no one else, unless you share it, I will not be able to help you out. And I don't know what is bothering you.
Yeah.
And if the person is still not opening up, then there is something definitely wrong, right? I mean, there is something that the person is not happy about, be it your relationship or be it the kind of work, whatever it is. And you see how what will help the person to open up. Is there a third person they can talk to, or is there something that you can throw in as inputs, or or sharing your concerns? And if you have done this enough, and if it's still not working, right, and you have to call it out again, right? I've done this enough number of times, I still don't see a change. I'm not sure what is it that is bothering you, but it is not helping us, right? Now we are in a point where you have to take a decision, right, based on this. Right now, how do you want to address this?
Yeah.
At some point in time, you have to push that person and say, yeah. And because we cannot keep doing this repeatedly, at some point you take that assertive call,
Yeah.
right? And it depends on how much. So where you have to do it, it depends on how your project is or what the timelines are, so that you minimize your losses, right?
Yeah. So about what you had said about the assertiveness of it. Should you? So this is just an opinion. Should you take that I stance and kind of try to explain and be helpful, and then be assertive, or is it all right to be assertive from the get go, kind of just to build a certain sense of pressure, I suppose. That this is something very important, this has to be done, and we understand that the timeline is less. uh, where do you kind of strike that balance there? Because
Okay, so
yeah, sorry, yeah.
yeah, sorry. My personally, what I will do is, I will first offer that and say, look, I know we are working on this, and this is very important to us, and this is what we need to do, and I can support you in following ways. I see that there is something that's blocking you. How do you think this will help you? Or how do you think this can help you? The person is still not opening up and say, can you do this? Can you do this? If the person is still not opening up, then it's not working, right? So you have to tell him that, look, your silence is not helping us, right? Now either we have to follow what I say and do it,
Yeah.
or either you have to come up with an idea and do it. If both is not working, then this is not the right fit.
Okay. All right. And the aspect about helping, it kind of applies to the same thing where you initially offer help as much as possible, but at a certain point you have to draw that line and end up being assertive then.
Yes, I mean, so before we make that decision, we see from ourselves, have we done everything from our perspective to make sure things can move forward, right?
Okay.
Again, as I said, the fundamental belief is, I know you can, but something is bothering you because of which you cannot, right? The reason I say that is we have gone through a lot of recruitment cycle or process to get that person, right?
Yeah.
So we have had some understanding of this person to say, yes, the person can contribute. Now, if
Yeah.
the person is not able to contribute, it could be some contextual information which is not in favor of the person as well, right? Or probably we did not, get the right type of assessment during that time frame. Whichever it is, we say, okay, you can do this. Here is the help required. But if that gap between what is required and where the person stands is very huge and it's not fitting the timelines, then we need to see how best we can handle it,
Okay.
right? If the person is totally not performing, then that a replacement is probably what is in order.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ashwin. Yeah.
All right. So anybody else who's interested in asking questions? I think this is
Yeah.
all.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you are always welcome to reach out to me by email and ask any questions or clarifications or any further support required. I'll be happy to help you guys. Right. And yeah, once again, thank you for the opportunity. I hope it was useful for you guys and informative. If you have any feedback, you can share it with me now. You can share it with Gerald, and we'll see how best we can work on it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gopal. And I thank every participant here. I'm sure we find it all very insightful and it helps us. Right? Thanks a lot and appreciate your time with us, Gopal.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Gopal. Thank you, Gerard.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.